all you can and you're running with kings. But how far could you go if you run with the wind? And the chances you take are what give you wings, and you can fly.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to She Butters Podcast. Today I have Dr. Luena. Am I pronouncing your name right?
That's right. Thank you.
So can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you. My name is Luena Bayer. I go by Lou. I am CEO of Civility Experts Worldwide Incorporated. We've been in business since 1999, so a long time, over 20 years. And we're in the business of civility. So I have the good fortune of traveling and teaching about 300 days a year, really. And we have 500 affiliates in 48 countries. So there's a need for civility anywhere you go in the world. And I just published about a month ago my 16th book.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So can you explain to us what a civility expert is? I've never heard of it before.
Sure. Thank you for asking. So some people think that civility is just manners. You know, if you look it up in the dictionary, it talks about manners. And I worry that people don't understand that it's not about following the rules. It's not about Martha Stewart perfection. It's not about being courteous and polite because you're supposed to be. Civility is, in fact, about your character. It's about valuing people. I think the easiest way to explain it is, as a civility expert, I try to give people the tools and training and information they need to understand that respect is not something anyone should ever have to earn. So if you are truly civil, you value people and you treat people equally, no matter what their race, their gender, their age, their hair color, you know, what their job title is. None of that is relevant. Really, we're all human and on the planet and sharing it together and deserving of respect.
I agree. I feel like a lot of jobs should hire you to work with their clients, because at my last job, it was terrible. Like, I had to leave, and the human resources lady, she kept trying to get me to come back. And she was like, can you please come back? Can you please come back? We'll work on it, because it was a lot of racist issues going on there, and a lot of the leaders were cussing out people that were, I wouldn't say below them, but working for them. And wow. Yeah, it was really bad. And I even went to human resource. I was like, look, I've been here for almost a year and I've been cussed out and I've been told that I stink because I'm Black. Yeah. One of the leaders said that the Black people that they hire there stink, they're lazy, and they smell funny or something like that. Like, she said all this stuff, and she was saying it around people. And I'm like, so you all are going to promote her? Like, how does that happen? Like, it was just bad. And I was crying every day I was coming home because she was so disrespectful.
Oh my gosh. And I'm so sorry that that happened to you. And that's why, you know, we at Civility Experts, we have, you know, we'll train the trainer and certification programs. We work with HR. The idea, I really think, is that people become so kind of tuned or accustomed to bad behavior. You know, they just accept, you know, other people must have observed that manager speaking badly. And we're so afraid to speak up and have a voice. We're so afraid to say what you just said is not right. You know, I think that we really lack courage these days, and courage is underpinning civility. I think that you have to have courage, and that you were treated that badly. Can you imagine a young person who their first job they ever have, they encounter that kind of stereotypes and prejudice and negativity and incivility, really, right? It changes who you are, right? And the way you see the world. Yeah.
Yeah, it made me really mad. Like, I was like, I'm not gonna disrespect her or anything, but I felt like it need to be worked on. Like, and they was like, well, we're working with her on her attitude and how to speak with people. I'm like, but that's her character. Like, you promoted her. That's who she is. Like, she's not gonna change.
That's right. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just so excited because you said a key thing. One of the reasons it's very difficult to teach civility is because, unlike you just said, many people will not acknowledge that behavior is an indication of your character. What you believe, how you value people, what you think is important, all comes out in the way you make decisions and how you treat people. So to your point, it's about character, and they can keep promoting her, but you can't change somebody's character with a culture class, right? It's information. That's not behavior modification.
Exactly. Is that what inspired you to become a civility expert?
Well, to be honest, we started out 25 years ago. We were the etiquette ladies. So I had a job in a hotel to pay off my student loans, and I was doing a master's degree at the time, and so I had to work. And in the hotel, people come and go, and they're on vacation, so they don't mind their manners. They steal things from the hotel, and staff at the hotel are kind of coming and going, and it's long hours. And we started to teach things like table manners and dining etiquette, because people would show up for a $500 a plate dinner, and they're eating their meat with their hands. They didn't even know, and in the big scheme of things, about 5 years later, I came to understand pretty quickly that you can teach people all the manners in the world, but if they really don't respect each other, I mean, I know lots of people who are very polite. I was raised in a very strict, 3 times a week to church, follow all the rules. I know lots of very polite people who I don't want to be in the room with, because I know that they're biased and racist, and they don't value me. They think women are less. They think, blonde women are stupid. They think kids should be seen and not heard. They think people of color have less value. So it's not enough to be polite. We want people to really, truly be civil instead.
Yes, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Because I live in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, and it's pretty bad. And so I went to a restaurant, and I asked the older woman, I was like, hey, do you know where the bathroom is? And she was standing right next to the bathroom. It didn't have a sign that said bathroom. And she just looked at me and just walked away. And I'm like, okay. I just feel like it's people who they are. They're showing their true character, and I don't want to say I don't want to communicate with them, but it's hard to communicate with them when they are that way. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Most definitely. Yeah.
So can you tell our listeners a little bit about your books you've written?
Sure. So I guess my work and my life pretty much all day, every day is civility. So the books are all about civility. Some are for children. Some are for adults. Some are on social intelligence, which is one of the ways you can teach people to be civil if they're not. We have some books that are specialized for certain industries. So a book called Lean on Civility for Manufacturing Sector that just came out, because that's a hierarchical, very command and control, really tough environment with unions and so on, and people aren't always treated well. So civility is kind of new to that environment. But all the books are about civility and best practices, how to foster civility. One is called Power of One. It's for individuals. It's how you can take on civility in your own life and work. But most of them are really kind of toolkits and intended for workplace.
That's amazing. I'm going to have to check your books out. So what inspired you to write your books? I mean, you gave me a little bit information about what inspired you to become a civility expert, but what inspired you to write the books, put it in writing form?
Well, I think the way it happened was really, I never planned on being an author. I wouldn't have imagined it. But in the early years when we were teaching children, there weren't any books in our city or online about Canadian etiquette, social skills for children. So we had to write them. We had to write curriculum. We did what we called courtesy camp, where during spring break and summer and Christmas holiday, parents would send their children Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and we would teach them manners and social skills. And so we called it courtesy camp. And I had to write lesson plans, what are we going to do with them every day? And one day, actually, I had sent the lessons to the printer to get printed, about 500 pages of of content, and the printer dropped it off outside our office. We had this office probably no bigger than my desk, 4 feet by 5 feet, tiny little office when we started out. And it just so happened that the office next door to us was a publisher, which I didn't know. It was raining, so he took our package into his office, and I guess it was partly open because it was wet, and he saw the curriculum, the books, and he knocked on the door when we got back, and he said, I hope you don't think I'm snoopy, but I'm a publisher and I just saw this curriculum. There's nothing like this, social skills for kids. Could I publish it for you? And that's how it started. And he published 3 kids' books for us. 2 of them became international bestsellers. And then, once you have a good published book, then there's all kinds of opportunities to do more books. They just kind of pop up. Yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. So, in your opinion, why is it important to protect the well-being of work culture?
Oh, because, the research shows that upwards of 80% of people are unhappy at work. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of going through the motions. They wish they could be somewhere else. They don't love their job. They don't feel fulfilled. But they stay because they feel they don't have another option, or their father-in-law hired them and they feel they have to be loyal, or they don't have a lot of other options. Maybe financially they can't afford to leave, all kinds of reasons. And we see then that people are unhappy, but they have an obligation to be in a situation. And so that's not going to make how they treat each other better or easier. They're going to be stressed. They're going to be anxious. They're going to be defensive. And so when leadership, management, and supervisors also come into those situations, and maybe they're ego-oriented or power-hungry, or maybe they're just unskilled, maybe they were great at their job and took a promotion, but they really don't know anything about people skills. Mm-hmm. It's almost a perfect storm, the stress and worry about injury and people, financial trouble. It's this big mess, but we spend so much time at work mm-hmm. that we take that stress home with us. And so in order to offset stress from a parent directed towards a child, or road rage, or, people screaming at someone at the bank or whatever, it occurred to me that the best place to address it would be workplace. And if we could make workplaces easier and less stressful and healthier and safer psychologically and otherwise, imagine how that would impact people's families and the community and so on. So really, it's about alleviating stress and trying to make life better if we can.
Yes, I agree. That's why I've had so many jobs, because of me not being happy where I work. Like, I would always get into arguments with people, and my mom was like, why do you keep doing this? And I'm like, because they don't know how to speak to people. Like, I feel like just because they're in a higher position, they shouldn't just speak to people anyway, because I feel like it's disrespectful, and they feel like just because they have the position they have, they can disrespect people who work for them. And I'm right. That's not how things work. That's not how things should be.
No. I think sadly that is how things work some of the time, but I agree with you. That is absolutely not how it should be. And the fact that people like that manager you spoke of, it's almost like they're rewarded for bad behavior.
Exactly.
And your choice is to hire a lawyer or go through the courts or cause a big ruckus, which damages your reputation anyway when it comes to the next job and reference and so on. So many, many people, our research shows, they stay as long as they have to, but they get even somehow. They sabotage, or they just don't produce quite right. They make more mistakes and the manager gets in trouble. They call in sick when the manager needs them the most. People get even, or else they go quietly because they've had enough, like maybe you did at one point. And they don't speak out loud at the time. But now with social media, with, a lot of opportunity after the fact to kind of do what you can to put things right, I find more people are taking action now maybe than they used to, because they see that, they're not alone in this battle, that lots of people have those terrible experiences.
Yes. And then a lot of jobs, like one time I was at a job and they had a really high turnover rate. And when I had quit, they called me. It was like I was there for like 2 days. They called me and they was like, "Why did you quit? Can you give us advice on what we should do?" And I'm like, "I'm just an employee." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, "You all could make the breaks a little longer," because they was only having 10-minute breaks and they was working up us for 12 hours. And I'm like, 10-minute breaks aren't gonna work when you
No,
work for 12
that's
hours.
not even enough time to go to the bathroom. Fix your face.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't even smoke. So I guess they was thinking about smokers, going outside and taking a smoke break. I was like, some of us don't smoke. So, but yeah, definitely. So do you just work with the clients, the clients, or do you work with their employees as well?
Both. So my approach is we have a team, of course, and so we try to do assessment first. We tour the workplace. We ask a lot of questions. We conduct some surveys and interviews because sometimes the first people you speak to think they know what's going on, but they really don't. And, we're a training company. So sometimes when we do our research and we snoop around a bit, we discover that the company doesn't really need training. You mentioned retention. Maybe people are leaving because things like you said, they have the skills, they can do the job, but they're leaving because they don't get breaks or they don't have safety equipment or the manager screams and yells at them. So the staff don't need training. Sometimes the management just have to do the right thing, pay people fairly, treat them well. And sometimes it's the management. Like my sense is almost always, I think that the leadership team should take the training first. Always. Yeah.
Exactly. Because I feel like if they treat people better, then they'll most likely be open to work for them. Most likely, like, want to do things for them. Like, hey, Brooke, can you go do this? And then they'll be like, sure. They wouldn't have a problem with it. But because of how disrespectful they are to the employees, they're like, yeah, I might get to it. And then they'll get to it and then do it not properly. Like they'll have to it.
That's right. Yeah. But it's interesting. I find more and more now companies are realizing that because people are afraid to leave, they get the job done sometimes, even with screaming and yelling and treating people badly. But long term, they're starting to see, okay, so they're not doing the maintenance. Like all the little things that happen in the background end up costing significantly more money, word of mouth, the company's reputation in the community. It doesn't take much these days to derail profits. So more and more companies are starting to see, okay, the way we treat people matters. And our research, and there's other research, for example, lots of Harvard University research and so on, that says that people will, in fact, settle for no raise. Like they understand sometimes the company business fluctuates. COVID things are slow, so we won't get our bonus this year. But if you've been treating those people well all along, it's not even about, they want to get paid. But most people in our research, about 92% of people said they would always choose a healthy work environment and fair wages over a poor work environment and high wages. So, yeah. And it doesn't really cost, like, to treat people well. Like it saves the company money. Why wouldn't you just treat people better, right?
Exactly. I just don't understand why. Like a lot of jobs that I worked at, I've had a lot of jobs, and my mom was like, why do you keep quitting these jobs? Like, I'll just walk out and quit, or I'll try to work with them, but if it keeps going on, then I get irritated and I'll just walk out. And this last job I've had all of the managers call me, the human resources call me, even other employees. Like, they really wanted me to come back. They was like, you're a good hard worker and we don't want to lose you. And I'm like, I understand, but she, like, it's like they was trying to work with her, but it wasn't getting better. Like, after the racist stuff she said, I just didn't feel like I was comfortable working there, because I don't know, like, what she was planning on doing or anything. Like, I just didn't feel comfortable.
No, that's not right. And I'm in Canada, as you know, in Canada, that kind of behavior, the organization would have both a moral and a legal obligation to fire her. that kind of racist behavior, there's very significant and costly consequences to employers who allow that kind of behavior, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I want to thank you so much for coming on here and interviewing with me about civility.
Thank you. It's really been my pleasure. Thank you.
You have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.
The reason why each of us comes to this earth, and your actions will always speak louder than words, and you'll never know what you're capable of until you try.